Today on Get Paid, we got Bryce Maddock, the co-founder and CEO of TaskUs. So Bryce took 20 grand and started TaskUs with his best friend, and when over the past decade, he has grown TaskUs into a global powerhouse handling customer experience for the most successful tech companies. Now, TaskUs has done the full journey, right? From starting the company, scaling over to $1 billion in revenue, in the meantime, taking it public. And as of last month, he partnered with Blackstone to take it back to private. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, this is the best conversation we have had in this podcast, and I love everyone that I've done, but this one you wanna take notes, and you wanna take big notes. So you wanna get the big notepad to take big notes, because Bryce drops a lot of knowledge. We will get into what it's like to build a massively successful company in the time of SaaS, and then what it's like to pivot in the challenges and the opportunities that AI presents. In the past, I have said that BPOs will be the first one to be disrupted by AI agents, and Bryce came here to call BS on that. He shares a vision of how humans and agents are much stronger value prop than agents alone, and how he plans to be the winner in this competitive landscape. Bryce, let's get paid. Bryce, so good to see you again. Thanks again for joining in the podcast. I was wondering when I was going to get you after I publicly said that BPOs are going to get eaten alive by AI, and I'm so fucking glad that you decided to join me despite all that. So tell me how big you guys are right now. Tell me everything. What's going on with TaskUs? You guys just went private. Congratulations.
Things are going well. We went through a challenging phase between 2022 and 2023. I think at the time, everyone was terrified that the slowdown in our growth was because of AI. And in fact, and I guess this is good news or bad news, maybe bad news. What we had seen at that point was not really AI. It was just clients tightening their belts post the COVID boom, and a lot of the jobs that we had built out in the US moving offshore, and clients just trying to drive incremental efficiency. But now I'm really proud to report that we're back to growth. In Q1, we grew 22% year over year. I think that makes us the fastest growing BPO, certainly the fastest growing any public BPO. So things are good. We just crested 60,000 global employees, 13 different countries, supporting over 200 of the world's most innovative technology companies with customer support, trust and safety, and actually a lot of their investments in AI when it comes to data collection, data labeling, expert answers, AI safety. So things are going really well right now. And then I watched the podcast interview that you did with Sequoia, and I said, man, I better call Manny, because if he's right, I'm in trouble.
Well, I'm glad we had a chance to talk. And I wanted to, before we get into the AI piece, so like 60,000. I cannot even wrap my head around a number that big. In BPO land, is that like a pissing contest? Like you take 60,000 and you have 100,000, I have 120,000, and you just throw big numbers.
Well,
like
it used to be, I remember when we were first starting TaskUs. I mean, my business partner Jasper and I have been best friends from high school, really. And we graduated from college and we toyed around with a bunch of different business ideas, and we started this virtual assistant business, and it really found its legs in supporting startups as they scaled out back office and customer facing operations. And a few years into it, we had really succeeded. I'd gotten to 800 employees, and I remember being on a date telling a girl that I had 800 employees, and it was great. I mean, she didn't believe me. But now in this world, I'm not sure that having 60,000 employees is the measure of success. I mean, certainly some of our bigger competitors have hundreds of thousands. You got probably the biggest company in the space is Accenture with like 700,000 employees. And they keep saying, we're going to have less employees next year, but they keep growing. And so I think when I think about like what matters now, clearly the vanity metric is actually more like revenue per employee, which we're probably amongst the lowest revenue per employee of almost any business. Maybe other than manufacturing. And the other thing is like the sexiness of the one-person startup. So if I do something next, it will just be me, and I'll be alone with a bunch of AI agents. And it'll be the number of AI agents I have. That's what I'll brag about.
That's right. So all right. So is a number of employees the revenue per employee metric is that just a startup thing, or are people in BPO land is starting to shift to mentality towards that as well?
I think it's a proxy for complexity. It's a little weird in the BPO space because if you have employees in offshore regions, like, our biggest offshore regions are Philippines and India, your revenue per employee is going to be, low. And
Right.
if you have a bunch of employees in the US, your revenue per employee will be high. But in our business, margins tend to be higher the further you are away from actually doing the work. So like Philippines and India have much higher margins than, say, the business that we do in the US. And so some people look at it as a proxy for complexity. If you've got, higher revenue per employee, it must mean you're doing more complex work. And it certainly can indicate that, but it can also just indicate that you've got an unoptimized geo footprint with lots of work being done, onshore, very near shore with lower margins.
Got it.
But yeah, in startup land, I mean, we're seeing this. I guess the first company I ever saw where this really mattered was Instagram. I remember when Instagram sold for $1 billion, it was like they had 13 employees and everyone was blown away by that. And now it feels like every day I look at a different, vibe coding company that's got to 100 million in ARR with like, 5 people. And I wish that I was starting a business today rather than 17 years ago.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I think that those are kind of the news that you hear. It's kind of like, sharks don't generally eat people, but the one time it happens, like you hear all the time. So now
Of
everybody's
course.
afraid
Of
of sharks.
course.
Like, so it's
Yeah.
not, but it is common, I would say, to find a 15-person startup doing good, earnest work,
Yeah.
running a $16 million ARR,
Yeah.
which, in the SaaS equivalent of that didn't exist, to be frank.
Yeah. I wonder, actually, to ask you a question, do you think that that's sustainable? Is it because one of the things that I've read recently, and I'm not as immersed in this space as you are, but I've read a lot about a lot of these companies are putting some of their like more professional services consulting revenue into their ARR calculation. And you have a lot of projects where companies are sort of experimenting with these tools. I mean, certainly there's companies like Cursor where it's like very obvious, like, yes, this is real. But I wonder in some of these other spaces, do you think it's sustainable to be a business that can have 16 employees and 60 million in ARR?
So that's a great question. So the short of it is I don't know, but I think it's you have to make a choice of what kind of company you want to become, right? So if you and you know this because you moved the market really quickly. I remember using you when I was starting outreach
Yeah.
because Max Altshuler was a huge fan of like calling you up and being like, all right, we need 2 people to like bang out lists so that we can outreach to them and like.
Yeah.
You grew a lot of like I don't know if you notice how many companies you actually grew from 0 to 10 million. Like you probably have your hand in a lot of those growths.
We definitely did.
A lot of the people who are getting to that revenue scale
Yeah.
are still in the small revenue scale. So put the coding platforms aside, like the Cursors, the Replits, the Low Bubbles, etc., because those have different dynamics in my mind. But like if you're scaling a business that produces a real product that has to be integrated into workflows, it has to be part of like people's fabrics, then you have a choice whether you're going to go and continue to serve the lower end of the market or you're going to go up market, like roughly, right? I think the middle is kind of like for losers. So you have a barbell strategy where you're truly SMB and you're becoming self-serve and your efficiencies is the amount of AI that you can deploy into your business, or you're upper market and you're a service now, you're a Workday, you're a
Yep.
Salesforce, that you have to press the flesh, you have to do the steak dinners, and you have to like put people in the building because you're educating a group of people that haven't seen this kind of transformation before. So if you decide to go with the latter, then no, of course you're not. Your revenue employee is gonna ebb and flow on your way to becoming a large sustainable business that uses fewer people. If you stay the former, then who knows? But there's also we haven't seen this movie before, right? It's
Yeah.
like there is so much changing. Like I have a new rubric here internally that actually was given to me by my co-founder Raj. That if something is hard right now, just wait 3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For
Whereas in the
sure.
past, we were like, if something is hard, let's build it because it's going to be a competitive mode. And I'm like, no, there's no competitive modes.
Yeah.
Technically, like you just wait. You just wait. So, so tell us what is the supply chain for TaskUs? Like,
Mm.
how is your customer acquisition like? Then, what do they hire you for? How do you expand? Like, tell us how you put in 25 cents in the front and get $1 at the
Yeah.
end.
Well, when we started the business, the only people who would take us seriously were like seed stage startup businesses. And the reason was it was
Like me.
Yeah, it was literally people like you. It was like we
Yeah,
had
yeah.
we had like $20,000. We opened a small office in the Philippines, an hour south of Metro Manila. It was not nice. We had 5 employees, and and so it was only crazy people who were like, "Yeah, that sounds great. Like this person seems like an intelligent person who can join my team, and you're going to charge me a lot less than it would cost to hire in Seattle or San Francisco." And so
Yeah,
like that was the business model then. As we've grown, it's become much larger technical businesses. So like the big tech businesses of the world are our customers, as are a lot of the growth stage scale up businesses. And really like our focus is how can we drive efficiency into these operations, but historically it's been through the application of outsourcing, building teams of people that are taking on customer support and trust and safety workflows. I think we've been
right.
one of the better providers at discovering like what's the next generation service demand. So we were probably the first and certainly the best at doing trust and safety and content mod. We were one of the first to get into AI services, which is a space that's just totally blown up to collect and annotate data for a lot of the autonomous vehicles and LLMs. So we had a lot of success there. And now we're deploying an agentic AI consulting practice where we're basically using AI agents to disrupt ourselves. We looked at this before ChatGPT. I had a friend who was at OpenAI and he was just telling me like, "Hey, we're coming for your business. You're in big trouble." And so we started investing really heavily in how we could use LLMs to automate customer support. And we've done that in two ways. One, we've developed a suite of tools that make our teammates, our actual humans, more productive at their jobs. And then we partner with third-party agentic AI customer service businesses to basically automate as much as we can. And so, we're trying to live the innovator's dilemma, disrupting ourselves and going out and discovering new revenue streams by actually cannibalizing our old revenue streams.
So what does that do to the old revenue stream? So what's the I like to I don't know if this is a good analogy, but I
Yeah,
like to use the Indiana Jones analogy where you have like the prize here and you have this rock. You have to do the switcheroo so that
yeah,
nothing so that people things don't go to shit. Like
yeah.
what's your Indiana Jones move? Like how do you take
I wish it
this
was that
veteran?
fast. It's painfully slow.
That's right.
It's
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, we've been even before we realized that we were going to be able to do so much with AI agents to automate customer support. We had been on this journey of trying to switch from getting paid for hours to getting paid for outcomes. Our
Oh
business,
wow.
our business for a long time was like a law firm, but the lawyers were just very, very poorly paid. It's an hourly billing rate where you might get $15 or $20 an hour for the work that your people are doing, and for that, you're supporting X number of customer cases. What we've really tried to push our clients to is let's get to an outcome-based model where you tell me what your success metric is, right? Is it, customers question answered with a positive customer satisfaction score? Whatever it is. Is it revenue generated per call? And try to get as close to the outcome as we possibly can. So we've been on that journey even before using AI, because if we can define it well, it just aligns incentives perfectly. I'm better incentivized to hire the best people, to train them effectively, to hold them accountable if I'm getting paid for the outcome that my customers want.
But Bryce,
And then,
what was the tipping point of that? Like you were,
yeah,
good getting paid by the hour. So like at what
mhm.
point do you wake up and be like, everything needs to change? I mean, this is a big change.
Yeah. I mean, I think to be honest, we're in the midst of this transformation, and it's complex. I think AI will make it easier in some ways, but it is complex because you have to really like draw the bounds of the contract and understand. Okay, well, what are we looking for exactly? What are the CSAT scores we're looking for? Is it a resolved contact? What happens if that contact gets reopened 5 days later? Is that an actual resolved contact or an unresolved contact? And so we have a lot of experience thinking through these permutations with clients and really drawing effective outcome-based agreements. And now
Yeah.
you put in AI agents and you just supercharge the entire thing, because I can drive efficiency not just by hiring better people and training them effectively and managing them effectively, which that all still exists. But now I can also deploy an AI agent to take on 10, 20, 40, 50% of the work. There, we're just trying to give the customers the upfront savings, right? So many of our clients are stuck in this procurement cycle where they're looking at AI agents, they're talking to their InfoSec teams, they're talking to their legal teams. There's a lot of fear. And we've been able to kind of end run that process and just say, look, today your per contact price is $2, right? We'll just give you an upfront savings. It means we're going to lose money, but we'll charge you $1.50 or we'll charge you $1 a contact. We'll lose money for the first year, but you give us control of actually being able to deploy these agents and better processes. And that model's really worked well for a lot of clients in terms of just getting them to take the AI agentic journey faster than they would have otherwise.
That's amazing. So I don't believe that all your clients were pissed. I mean, you can't become the size that you are by making people mad. So this must have been a really small thing
Mm.
that you sniffed it out as being consequential and disrupting to your business. Like, walk us through that aha moment where you got to feel these and you just like extrapolate it in your head. It's like, oh shit, this is coming for me.
Yeah, I mean, it started before AI, and it really was this moment of. You're right. I mean, look, we've been very lucky. We've got a lot of really amazing clients, and we do great work, and that's what's driven us to grow so fast.
Right.
And there was always also this point of friction where clients would say, like, I'd like to see you do more. I'd like to see these customer satisfaction scores 5 points higher. I'd like to see my revenue per call, higher. And with sales work, it's always been pretty easy to do sort of incentive based agreements, but it was more difficult to think that through in a traditional customer service or trust and safety environment. And so we just found it was worth it to actually invest the time to get to outcome based metrics that the client would agree to and we would agree to were achievable and would really meaningfully impact their business. And then it's on us really to just drive that incremental efficiency. If you're outsourcing, you're trying to get the headache, off your chest,
Off.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're looking for someone to actually own, your
The
mess for
problem.
less. And so here, this was just an opportunity for customers to say, look, we're not only going to save costs, but we're also going to have a guarantee of an outcome. Otherwise, we don't pay for it. And there's a lot of risk that went into that. For us, the business model historically has been one where the gross margin was basically fixed, right? If you're getting paid an hourly rate and you're turning around and you're paying someone a portion of that plus, overhead costs and training costs and all those things,
Yeah.
there's not a lot you can do to leverage your gross margins. But if we were willing to put some skin in the game, we saw that our gross margins could actually expand over time. It might mean making less upfront today and maybe even
Yeah.
this year, but we would then be the masters of our own destiny if we could drive the results that our customers were looking for, make more money, and kind of have a positive reinforcing cycle where you're investing some of that back in creating a better employee experience.
This is amazing. So how do you think, like, how's the dynamic going to play out between BPOs,
Yep.
pure agentic companies in a hybrid model? Like, how does that play out?
I think nobody knows to start.
Right. But
There's
everyone
certainly
is claiming a winner. Like, if you talk to Intercom, they already won, right? Like
yeah,
Sierra is
sure.
already like, you know what I mean? They're like, same
There's a
thing with
lot.
Zendesk going forward.
There's a lot of money being deployed into this space, and there's certainly a lot of incredible technology being built. I think if you ask the optimistic, techno optimists, let's call them, they would tell you that customer service is going to be all agentic in a few years. I obviously don't think that's the case. Otherwise, I wouldn't still be doing what I'm doing. I think undoubtedly a huge portion of the simple, repeatable customer interactions are going to be automated. We're already seeing a lot of our customers do that. Some of them are doing that in combination with TaskUs. Others are just going directly to the agentic AI companies and deploying their own solutions to do this. But
Yeah.
the first phase is taking the old, really decision tree based chatbots and just putting them on steroids so that they actually solve customer problems. And that's been hugely successful for a lot of our clients.
Is that a
Um,
replacement cycle? Is it like, live person being replaced by somebody else, or is it
yeah,
live
it's
person
basically
upselling
this is
something
like I
else?
mean a lot of our clients, almost all of our clients, I would say, had some form of chatbot that they had launched where it was
Yeah.
these old school, basically like you're mapping out decision trees. Someone will like say something, but then it's like, hey, pick from these three options. It's not natural language, and sort of the first step we've seen a lot of our clients do is let's get rid of the chatbot. Let's bring in the Sierras or the Decagons or the Intercoms of the world and actually have something that's an agentic solution that can answer our customers' questions and begin to take actions that actually solve customer problems.
Right.
And that's been really, really successful. And we've been a big part of that, deploying a lot of these solutions for our clients. That has cannibalized a portion of the volume that we do. One interesting thing I would say is I see these metrics that both can't be true. Like I see metrics where it's like, hey, we've automated 60, 70, 80% of our customer support. And I'm in the background being like, well, we still have the same number of humans. So I don't understand how those two things are possible.
Dude,
So I
you
don't,
gotta go public with this
I'm still
stuff. You
unclear.
got, come on, man. You
Yeah.
gotta bring this fight out. Like that's amazing. The fact that you just said that because everyone is
Well,
claiming some
I can
big
do that,
numbers.
but I'll obviously never name names. I think one thing that's important, Manny, is you always have to understand the character you're playing. And TaskUs is not the hero. We're the helper, right? Like we like, I'm not looking to upstage my clients or to call anybody out. I'm very, very happy to quietly help them. And if they want to claim 80% automation and still keep our entire team employed, I'm very happy about that. So so that's sort of been the first phase. I actually think the next phase is going to be even more impactful for my business and for all BPOs, which is beginning to really become an agentic solution where things that took 2, 3, 4, 6 weeks to train a human being to do, you can now train an agentic system to do. And I think that's where the rubber will meet the road. Certainly, the investors are all fearful of this, and you've seen stock prices really depressed in the BPO space over the last, call it 2 years. And I think we're going to see over the next, call it 12 to 18 months, a real transformation of this entire space. And where some of our competitors' growth has been flat, I think people that are not getting with the program and actually embracing the solutions will begin to see some actual cannibalization and negative growth in their businesses. So I'm concerned about that, but on the flip side, I'm also really excited about the role that we can play. And I think that is at least two parts. The first is we're deploying these agentic solutions and benefiting from them, helping our customers through these outcome-based agreements. And the second is at every step in the last 2 decades, when someone has told me, hey, this portion of your business is going to be completely automated, very often, almost always, they were right. Usually it took a little longer than they predicted, but they were right. What they failed to see, though, was there would be new demand for services from human beings. And so I'm not in the camp who looks at AI and says, hey, this is completely different from anything we've seen before. We're going to just see mass unemployment. I don't believe that that's the case. I do think we're going to see significant temporary dislocation, but I believe that there will continue to be demand for human services, and that demand may look more complex. It may look higher value. I think our responsibility as a service provider and employer of 60,000 employees is to take them on the journey with us, to invest in their training and reskilling and move them up the value chain as we deliver more valuable services to our clients.
So will all 60,000 make it through the journey, or who is getting left behind and who's getting to the front?
I don't know that all 60,000 are going to make it through the journey. There certainly is going to be temporary dislocation where people are going to lose their jobs. And I think anyone who says differently is not being truthful and doesn't understand the power of this technology. I think what we've seen at TaskUs, though, is even the clients who've been the most successful at deploying these agentic AI solutions are taking a portion of the savings that they are banking from agentic AI and reinvesting it in higher value services for their most important customers or in the most important moments. We've got customers, well, I'll just take like one broad category, which is like food delivery clients. And there's been massive success in the food delivery space, automating a lot of the tier 1 support. A lot of these companies have realized, though, that a huge portion of their revenue comes from their top 2, 3, 5% of customers. And they're saying, look, let's launch a white glove support line where if that customer contacts us, we can pick up the phone with a human being in 5 minutes and solve their problems. These human agents are much more empowered to actually solve problems. And so it kind of becomes a win-win where we can do higher value, more complex work for these companies, and they're willing to pay for it. Now, again, the techno-optimist would look at this and say, okay, well, eventually, the AI is going to get so good it will do everything. And I think that's possible. But I think it will take longer than people predict.
Yeah.
And my belief, what I'm betting on, is there will be new forms of emergent work that are going to be created by AI and the ways in which AI will transform our
Dude,
society.
I love that vision. Like, I was just thinking as you were saying that, like, I spend so much money with Deliveroo. Sorry, with not it. So Deliveroo is here, but DoorDash.
Yeah,
I spend so much money at DoorDash that I wish that somebody from DoorDash would call me and they was like, "Hey, Manny, it's Tuesday night. Historically, Tuesdays have been rough for you. Let's just get dinner sorted out, man. Like, you don't need
totally.
this. You don't need this on your hands. These are the options. This is what's delivering fast. This is what is not gonna get stuck in traffic." And like, if that was a service, Jesus, oh my God, I can't. Like, I'm about to cry right now of like the amount of joy that will bring me into my life. So yes, make
Yeah.
sure that that happens. All right. So who wins and he loses? You have all these BPOs. It's a
Mm,
multi-billion-dollar industry.
huge.
Lots of people, jobs on the line.
Yeah.
Who is moving in the right direction? What do the firms look like? What does TaskUs look like in 2, 3 years from now? And who is on the losing side? What do they look like?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think a lot of our competitors have woken up to the reality and have begun to partner with agentic AI solutions as we have, and are beginning to make bigger and bigger investments in AI. I think the first thing to realize as a service company is to embrace the fact that you are not a technology company. One of
Mm,
the biggest mistakes I've seen companies make over the years is to fool themselves into believing that they can reposition them to become like 100% tech. In fact, in the early days of TaskUs, we bootstrapped the business because no venture capitalist would invest in us. Every time we'd meet with a venture capitalist, they would be like, "Okay, so like, what's the tech angle? How do we turn you into technology business?" And Jasper and I mean, neither one of us is technical, so it was obviously like we can't do that, and we don't think that that's actually the right positioning for the business. We felt like really just doubling down on the core value proposition was right. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to embrace tech. We
right.
absolutely have to embrace technology. We need to run a professional services consulting led approach to helping our clients deploy these solutions. And I think our clients, who are some of the most technically advanced customers in the world, are having a tougher time than people would have predicted 2 or 3 years ago when ChatGPT came out. I mean, I remember meeting with a IT services CEO shortly after ChatGPT came out at the end of 22, and he told me my entire business was going to be gone in 12 months. Now, thank goodness he was wrong. But it feels like I've been having a conversation like that every month basically since. And so I'm a believer that there's a role for a professional service company in helping our clients to be successful. And
Yeah.
there's a combination of technology and talent that's going to be required to make these solutions work at scale.
Right.
So I think companies that embrace that, companies that deploy AI agents, companies that see the human's role as a supervisor and success coordinator of these agentic solutions, and evolve from having a human on the front lines to a human basically in the back office overseeing AI agents and making them successful, keeping them on the rails. The companies that can do that are going to succeed. The companies that continue to just have lots of humans do lots of work at lower and lower prices will go the way of directory assistants. I actually think it's a lot like the transformation we saw in the late 90s and early 2000s in the internet space. And that the flat-footed BPOs will be a lot like the directory assistance companies. And those companies made a lot of money for a lot longer than people predicted, by the way. Like it went on for many years, but they don't exist anymore. So my hope is to exist.
When I think about that, they're a cash flow business, right? So
Yeah.
whoever owns those BPOs are counting on this reliable cash flow. Matter of fact, they may be leveraged, which means
They're-
that they need that cash flow to pay on, to pay the coupon on that debt.
Yeah.
So how can they pivot if you already got this lever business, beautiful,
Yeah.
dollar in, $10 out?
There's been a lot of M&A in our space, tons of M&A. And so there is a lot of leverage on these businesses, a lot. And it limits the ability to make big bets, such as I'm going to go and spend hundreds of millions of dollars on AI. With that being said, I don't know that you have to spend that much to just to continue to compete. Because again, my proposition is it's not wise for TaskUs or any BPO to go and say, I'm going to go compete with Sierra and Decagon. Like that's that's a really bad idea. Those companies are going to raise hundreds of millions of dollars in venture capital, and they're going to attract the world's most brilliant technologists. And so to think that you're going to be able to compete is not wise. In my opinion, seeing ourselves as more of a consultative value-added reseller and systems integrator, it's a humble approach. We're not talking about building the next $100 billion business, but I do believe that we can grow from where we're at today to becoming a multi-billion, potentially 10 billion plus business by doing that. And at this stage in my career, I would consider that success.
All right, so let me take your side. So I'm gonna be the BPO right now.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say, Bryce is full of shit. Like I own the customer relationship. I have been with these customers for 20 years.
Yeah.
And they're all afraid of AI. And before they buy any of these jokers, because there's 20 of you, they're going to come and talk to me. And they're going to say, hey, Manny, like, who should I pick? Like, they're all kind of sound the same. They look the same. They, flying cars, whiz-bangy stuff. What should I buy? So I own the customer relationship. That is more secure than anything else. So how do you attack that?
I think first, what's actually happening inside our customers is that there's massive pressure from the board and the C-suite because they listen to podcasts like this or read the headline articles, and it's like, hey, Klarna doesn't have any humans doing customer support anymore. Why do you?
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
I mean, now obviously
I forgot about that.
that was not fully true and was walked back. But like it's the headlines that are driving this. Like it should just be all automated. I don't even understand why we have human beings doing this. And for a lot of the big companies, I mean, the outsource spend is massive. I mean, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars inside of our biggest clients. Sometimes billions of dollars inside of our biggest clients that are being spent on this. And so it's very easy for that pressure to build and for the C-suite and the board to say, like, we need to see real change. In the middle of the business, there is a lot of fear. And it's fear based on, I mean, the first thing is the systems inside a lot of these companies are just totally broken to begin with. So it's like, do you understand how many, like, I mean, you walk into TaskUs office and some of our clients, there's like 12 different tabs that a teammate needs to use in order to do a job. It's very, very, very complex. Now, that's not true for everybody. A lot of our clients have made the right investments in tooling and systems. And those are the ones that will be most successful fastest when it comes to rolling out AI agents. But for a lot of our customers, where we're starting with is like, look, we just need to like fix this tooling even before we talk about rolling out an AI agent. So I think talking to the I guess naive BPO CEO, I would just say that this is for sure coming. Just because one, the tech is real. Two, the pressure is absolutely building. It will take longer because there's a lot of systems that have to be fixed, but eventually the imperative to save money and improve the customer experience is going to overcome all of those things. And so I think the best businesses in our space will get out in front of that, will hold their clients' hands and walk them through this process, even if that means cannibalizing parts of their current business.
That's excellent. Now, take the side. So now you are a young, brash AI agent founder of a customer service, customer support agent company. What's your advice to them? Like, what would you do if you were them? What if if you were the CEO of you mentioned Decagon, Sierra, and Intercom, but there is a few others that are smaller than them that are doing very similar work. To go solo, tackle those accounts, partner with somebody, look for verticals. Like, what's your strategy as a agent builder?
I mean, first off, I have a tremendous amount of admiration for these founders. I've gone and I've met with a number of them, and I joke like they remind me of myself 17 years ago if I was good at math. I mean, they're really smart. It's crazy. It's scary for me. I think the most important thing for them is similar to what was the most important thing for us, which is you have to find a few really large clients that love you. That's it, right? I mean, our business over the years was built by these strength of relationships with a few really large, powerful customers that trusted us and challenged us. And when they said, hey, can you hire 1,000 people to do XYZ in the next few months? We said yes. And we went and we figured out how to make it happen. And obviously there's a corollary for that inside the agentic AI world, which is, your customers are going to challenge you with massive, hard problems. I think going deep and saying, yes, we're going to go and figure out how to do that, and having the technical capabilities to execute on it is going to determine who's successful and who's not. As far as partnerships go, I think the agentic AI companies we've worked with have found it to be super helpful to have a company that has relationships with, over 200 of the biggest technology firms that are looking to drive automation into their customer service, to have us on their side saying like, yeah, this is absolutely something we should do, and we think this is the best partner for you, and we're going to hold your hand through the process. I think partnerships can be a big part of the strategy. I do think you have to be skeptical because, as every one of these founders that I had a conversation with, when I reached out to them initially, they were like, I don't really get this. Like, why do you want to work with us? We're going to kill you, And so I think skepticism is very well placed. But I think there are, I would say that I believe that I'm this type of CEO, and there probably are a few other founders and CEOs in the BPO space that believe strongly enough in the power of this technology and find themselves in kind of a do or die moment where it's like, either we're going to embrace this and we're going to lose some of our revenues, but hopefully we'll replace it with stickier, higher value revenues, or we're going to bury our heads in the sand and get killed in the next few years.
So when you see the, I don't know if you saw this announcement from Owen at Intercom,
Yep.
that he was going to pay $1 million if he didn't achieve the results. So like, that's how convicted he was of his own ability to drive outcomes. And clearly he's not partnering with anybody. He's just coming out and saying, look, I'm going to replace everybody else. And then you have that approach. Then you have the approach of, Sierra, who is very consultative. Every contact is bespoke, high calorie, sort of lots of skin touching skin on that one. Or even Parloa, who has a whole business of empowering BPOs.
Yep.
What's the efficient frontier there? Who wins, who loses? What works and what doesn't work?
So I think probably I have to state my priors, which is, we chose to partner with Decagon and with a company out of New York called Regal, who has, I think, the best voice AI solution. Certainly the best one I had seen, and the best one our consulting team had diligenced. And I'll admit, like, this stuff is changing every single week. So, who knows? I know there's a lot of investment that's gone into that space. Decagon's rolled out their own AI agent, as voice AI agent. But when we announced the partnerships, it was very much focused on Decagon is the best at chat and email, and Regal was the best at voice. And so we went with a 2-partner approach, and we see that the opportunity to potentially expand beyond that. But at this stage, we've really focused on those 2 players. So I'll just say that to start. I think the thing to say is there's a room here for many winners. I do think there's a little bit of a zero-sum approach when you see people like saying, only one of us is going to win or whatever. That's not the truth. Look at the BPO space, okay? We've got like 100 companies in this space that are $500 million or in revenue or more. It's something crazy like that. And we're probably like the 20th biggest BPO in the world. There's just so many companies in this space. And I think the likely future is that the smartest companies probably won't use one agentic AI platform. I actually think this is an important point.
I was going to ask you that. So do you see in your deployment, like what? So
the smartest companies we've seen, and by the way, like, this is not true across all of them. A lot of our customers and a lot of companies that we're aware of are doing pilot projects with one agentic AI solution. And that's great. But the companies that are kind of on the frontier have realized that AI agents are not like SaaS platforms or HCM platforms where you only have one, right? I'm not going to have Salesforce and Dynamics because then I'm having to maintain 2 databases. It doesn't make any sense. But an AI agent can actually be much more like a service provider where you want to have a champion and challenger, or you want to have more than two providers and effectively compete them against one another in a race for like who can give me the best results at the lowest possible cost. And so I think you'll see dozen different agentic AI firms grow to be $100 million plus businesses. I feel very confident in that, and you'll see many of the largest customers will use more than one agentic AI platform. I think there's a possibility of a future, which is probably the one that I would say I hope for, where you'll have BPOs partnered with AI agents as a team, and you'll have one BPO using a different AI agent system, and we'll be using a different one and sort of partnered and competing against each other that way. But there's also probably a future in which the client just says, look, I'm going to have a layer of AI agents to solve as many problems as we can up front. And then we'll have a layer of BPOs to basically pick up whatever gets through, or whatever elevated contacts we have. So I think there's a lot of room to compete here. I will just say, going back to the comment I made earlier about the percentage of automation success, I continue to just be confounded by some of these numbers that I'm hearing, where we've had customers named publicly who say that we've automated 60, 70, 80% of our contacts, and yet they still have the same number of people that they're paying to do customer service. So I'm always confused by that.
Will you make that claim, or you think it's just a marketing gimmick?
Would I make the claim that you can get to
Like
65?
if I don't deliver on the, I'll promise an outcome. If I don't deliver an outcome, I owe you $1 million.
There's just so many questions. It's like, okay, what is a resolved contact? And does customer satisfaction matter? Right? Like, I mean, sure, I can resolve 65% of contacts if every time someone contacts me, I just hang up on them. Right? Resolved. I mean, again, I'm not saying that's what they're doing at all. Like, I'm sure that they are actually resolving contact, but like the point is that simply saying a contact is solved is not enough, right? Does it come back? And I'm sure there are ways to define this, but this is where I think actually, like, the economic model of, is it a contact like handled, right? Meaning like we had an interaction, or is it a contact resolved? If it's a contact resolved, it is very complex to define what is a resolution. I mean, one perfect example of this is, and this is ironic because we're seeing more and more of this on the human side, is if someone doesn't like the policy, right? And you ask them, hey, did I solve your problem? If I don't like the policy, I'm gonna be like, no, my problem wasn't solved, right? But I mean, we told you, hey, in this case, we don't issue a refund, and that's just the policy. So I'm a little bit, I guess, skeptical. I do think the irony is this makes it harder for us, because a lot of the contacts that get escalated to humans become just really pissed off customers who want a human to yell at.
Oh, interesting.
Right? Because it's
so
like, hey,
you guys are getting like the advert selection problem that
the
easy
AI
ones
agent
get taken off by the AI agent, and now you're getting the angry customers. So now you have a bunch of human beings who are yelled at.
It's always been our place is to deal with angry customers with as much compassion and empathy as possible. But the AI agent actually makes it more challenging, because the AI agent can follow the policy and still piss off the customer, such that they're like, I want to talk to a human being. And, and then obviously you just end up with the dissatisfied, because the customers where they're satisfied with the policy are like, great, click, move on with my life. So,
for what it's worth, I appreciate the brashness and the boldness,
for sure,
and the statement. In every movement, there is that one person who moves it forward, and for everyone building AI agents, we need more of that.
I totally agree. I think it'll be really interesting to see how this evolves and how these things get defined. I would just say, I love competitiveness. I think healthy competition is wonderful, but I think let's not assume that this is a zero-sum world. This is not a world where it's like, are you Salesforce or not? That's not this industry at all. You are going to have many very large companies built in this space, and it's going to look more like the BPO space than it does like traditional software.
Well, you live in the future. You just don't know it.
I don't know. Most people think I'm living in the past, but hey, we'll see. I'm super optimistic that the machines are not going to take all of our jobs, and there'll still be a role for human customer support. But we'll see what happens.
I appreciate that, Bryce. You have been one of the most generous CEOs that I've talked to, willing to entertain the other side of the argument without getting, super pissed off at me. And you brought a lot of insight and a lot of light into the dark corners of the economy that for AI agents, this is completely new. So thank you so much. I'm sure a lot of people took a lot of notes. This is one of those podcasts that will be replayed several times over.
Thank you, Manny. One thing is for sure. Either I'll look like a genius or a complete fool in a few years. So I'll be excited to look back and see which it is.
Don't we all? Don't we all? That's what happens when you live on the edge. Well, I appreciate you, Bryce. Have a good day, and thanks again for coming.